The neon glow of Nexus Station's entertainment district reflected off Krixtal's crystalline exoskeleton as they studied the contract details floating in their neural display. 50 million galactic credits. The number alone made their secondary hearts skip a beat. A fortune that could buy a small moon in the outer systems, all for eliminating one human diplomat. Dr. Amanda Reynolds. The name pulsed in soft blue letters against the backdrop of passing hover traffic. Krixtal's research indicated she had risen through Earth's diplomatic ranks with unprecedented speed, earning a reputation for turning hostile negotiations into profitable partnerships. Her latest assignment involved mediating a resource dispute between the Centaurian Mining Consortium and the Earth-based Genesis Corporation. Another drink, honored Hunter. The bartender's translucent appendages swirled anxiously as they waited for a response. The Cave of Whispers, despite its impressive privacy shielding, felt unusually empty tonight. Information first. Krixtal clicked their mandibles. The human quarter seems quiet. The bartender's chromatophores flickered in distress patterns. Most hunters left when they heard about the contract. Some even abandoned ongoing jobs. They leaned closer, voice dropping to a subsonic whisper. They say the last 3 who took contracts on humans never reported back. Krixtal dismissed the warning with a gesture. Guild statistics showed humans were sophisticated but ultimately fragile. Their technological prowess couldn't compensate for their physical limitations. No natural armor, modest strength, and unremarkable speed. The high bounty likely reflected the target's political importance, nothing more. Through their augmented vision, Krixtal observed Dr. Reynolds entering her preferred coffee shop exactly on schedule. She moved with the casual confidence typical of her species, apparently oblivious to the numerous surveillance devices tracking her movements. Her burgundy business suit and silver-streaked black hair marked her as a senior diplomat, but nothing about her suggested exceptional threat assessment capabilities. Pardon the interruption. A raspy voice broke through Krixtal's observations. The Silurian mercenary, scales scared by what looked like acid burns, settled onto the adjacent hover stool. Word is you're considering the Reynolds contract. Guild business is confidential, Krixtal replied curtly, irritated by the breach of professional etiquette. The Silurian's laugh sounded like grinding metal. Was confidential. Now it's survival wisdom. 3 cycles ago, my crew took a contract on a human agricultural specialist. Simple target, minimal security. Their claws traced the acid scars. We didn't know they can track by residual heat signatures, or that they understand pack hunting better than Silurians, or that they can run for days. Krixtal's exoskeleton bristled. Every species has weaknesses. That's the thing about humans, the Silurian pushed away from the bar. They turn their weaknesses into traps. The Reynolds contract. It's not a job offer, it's bait. As the Silurian departed, Krixtal noticed other patrons maintaining a conspicuous distance. The Cave of Whispers typically hosted dozens of hunters planning their contracts, but tonight barely 10 occupied the space. Their behavior pattern matched prey animals aware of an apex predator's presence. Ridiculous. Krixtal had eliminated targets from 17 different species across 8 star systems. Their success rate stood at 97%, with the remaining 3% classified as incomplete rather than failed. No single human, diplomat or otherwise, could justify this level of collective fear. Yet the empty seats nagged at their tactical analysis. The Cave of Whispers served as neutral ground for the galaxy's deadliest professionals. These hunters had eliminated planetary defense ministers and corporate overlords. They'd infiltrated military bases and secure research facilities. Now they were avoiding the human quarter like it was infested with quantum parasites. Krixtal's mandibles clicked in determination as they authorized the contract acceptance. 50 million credits would fund their retirement to a private asteroid. More importantly, completing this contract would demonstrate why the Centaurian hunter caste deserved their fearsome reputation. In their neural display, Dr. Reynolds suddenly looked directly at the hidden camera drone and smiled. Krixtal froze, probability algorithm spinning. The drone employed top-tier cloaking technology. Its detection should have been impossible. The human raised her coffee cup in a subtle salute, and Crickstall felt their primary heart join their secondary in arrhythmic panic. The hunt hadn't even begun, and somehow, they were already being hunted. The broken blade lived up to its name. Ancient plasma scorches scared its walls, and the ceiling still bore impact craters from a firefight 3 decades ago. Mercenaries considered each mark a historical record, a reminder that survival often meant learning from others' fatal mistakes. Crickstall chose a shadowed alcove, their crystalline exoskeleton automatically adjusting its refraction to blend with the darkness. The footage from their failed surveillance of Dr. Reynolds played on repeat in their neural display. That knowing smile, the impossible detection of their drone. Every analysis protocol suggested they were missing crucial variables. A heavy mechanical whirring drew their attention. The massive drachnid approaching their table was more machine than organic, each step accompanied by the hydraulic hiss of military-grade cybernetics. His remaining biological eye glowed with enhancement implants, while the artificial one swiveled independently, scanning constantly. Vexthor, Crickstall acknowledged the veteran hunter. Rumors claimed you'd retired. Retired. Crippled. Hiding. The drachnid's voice emerged through a synthetic vocal processor. All true, depending on who's asking. He lowered himself into a reinforced chair, his mechanized limbs adjusting to distribute his weight. But when I heard another hunter accepted a human contract, I had to warn them. Crickstall's mandibles clicked dismissively. I've heard enough warnings. No. Vexthor's organic eye fixed on them. You've heard stories. I'm offering truth. His mechanical hand placed a neural transmitter on the table. See why I'm more machine than flesh now. Crickstall hesitated, then connected to the device. The memory hit like a neutron blast. Asterisk, a luxury mining facility on Europa. Vexthor's team executing a perfect infiltration. Their target, human mining executive Marcus Chen, trapped in his panic room. The kill should have been clean asterisk. Asterisk, then Chen's voice over the facility's comm system. You hunt well, but did you ever wonder why humans don't have natural weapons? It's because we learned to turn everything else into one. Asterisk. Asterisk, the facility's atmospheric processors reversing, creating zones of vacuum. Maintenance bots reprogrammed into hunter-killers. Every system they'd compromised turning against them with devastating precision asterisk. Asterisk, the memory fragmented into flashes. Vexthor's team dying one by one. Not quickly, but over days. Chen had sealed the facility, turning it into a labyrinth where he became the hunter. He used their own techniques against them, learning and adapting with terrifying speed asterisk. Asterisk, the final confrontation showed Chen, not even armored, just wearing a mining suit, explaining calmly, your mistake was thinking that being prey made us weak. But humans? We studied prey animals. We learned their survival strategies. Then we combined them with our own evolution as pursuit predators. Asterisk. The memory cut off. Crickstall's hearts raced as their system processed the implications. 7 of us went in. Vexthor's organic eye twitched. I survived because Chen wanted a messenger. He enhanced me with these cybernetics himself. Said it was a professional courtesy to make sure I could tell the story properly. One human couldn't. Crickstall began. They're not just one. Vexthor cut them off. That's what you're not understanding. Humans evolved as pack hunters. Attack one, and their entire social network activates. Dr. Reynolds isn't your target. She's their lure. Right now, every human on this station is probably aware of you, studying you, learning your patterns. A notification flashed in Crickstall's neural display. Their backup surveillance drone had detected Dr. Reynolds entering a diplomatic meeting. She was wearing the same outfit as yesterday, down to the smallest detail. She's showing you what you expect to see, Vexthor commented, noting Crickstall's sudden alertness. Humans understand predator psychology better than we understand ourselves. While you're watching her decoy, The real hunt has already begun. The veteran hunter stood with mechanical grace. You have maybe 12 hours before she finishes analyzing your methods. After that, his artificial eye whirred as it focused. Remember, they don't just kill hunters. They make examples of us. As Vexthor departed, Crixtal accessed the Mercenary Guild's contract system. Their claws hesitated over the cancellation protocol. Pride warred with instinct, professional reputation against primal survival. In their display, Dr. Reynolds' decoy turned and winked directly at another hidden camera. The cancellation window closed untouched. Some hunts, Crixtal realized, could only end through completion or death. They were beginning to suspect which outcome humans preferred. The neurotoxin was a masterpiece of biological engineering. Crixtal had paid 200,000 credits to a rogue Meridian biochemist for a compound specifically calibrated to human physiology. It would leave no trace, simulate a natural heart failure, and bypass standard diplomatic protection screens. Through their neural display, Crixtal monitored the atmospheric processors they'd compromised in Dr. Reynolds' private conference room. The toxin's dispersal would coincide perfectly with her scheduled meeting with the Centaurian Mining Consortium representatives. Security sweep complete, the station's AI announced. Chamber air composition nominal. You may enter, Dr. Reynolds. She walked in wearing a charcoal business suit, her silver-streaked hair pulled back severely. Nothing in her posture suggested awareness of danger. The door sealed with a soft hiss as the atmospheric processors initiated their modified cycle. Crixtal's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Their research had revealed that humans, despite their adaptability, required constant oxygen intake. Even a few minutes of tainted air would. Fascinating compound. Dr. Reynolds' voice came through Crixtal's hijacked feed. She was examining a holographic display of the toxin's molecular structure. The synthetic protein chains are particularly elegant. Meridian design, if I'm not mistaken. Impossible. The conference room's internal sensors shouldn't have been able to identify the toxin's composition, let alone display it. Crixtal's hearts accelerated as they realized the environmental systems were no longer responding to their commands. You're probably wondering how I detected it, Reynolds continued, speaking directly to the hidden surveillance devices. Human olfactory capabilities are generally dismissed as unremarkable, but we didn't survive as pursuit predators just using our eyes. She tapped her nose. This is the original model, but it's been enhanced. Your toxin has a distinct molecular signature. Once I isolated it, backtracing its chemical components through the station's supply chain was simple pattern recognition. Crixtal initiated emergency protocols, trying to purge their access from the compromised systems. Each attempt failed, their commands redirected through recursive loops. Don't bother, Reynolds smiled. While you were studying my decoy yesterday, I was mapping your cyber trails through the station's network. Beautiful work, by the way. Nearly invisible, but humans evolved watching for subtle signs of prey and predators. Digital patterns aren't so different from tracks in the sand. The conference room's displays lit up with a cascade of data. Crixtal's infiltration routes, safe house locations, weapon caches, and emergency extraction plans. Their entire operation laid bare in perfect detail. Here's what fascinates me about your species. Reynolds walked to the window overlooking the station's central atrium. You're apex predators on your world. You evolved sophisticated hunting strategies, but you never had to learn what it means to be hunted. Warning signals flashed across Crixtal's neural network. Their backup systems were being systematically locked out, each failsafe triggering another trap. Humans. She pressed her hand against the glass. We remember being prey. It's written into our DNA. We survived by understanding predator psychology, by turning their strengths into weaknesses. Every time something tried to hunt us, we learned. Adapted. Eventually, we became better predators than the things hunting us. Crixtal's exoskeleton vibrated with suppressed panic as their last secure channel dissolved. They were completely exposed. So now you have a choice. Reynolds turned back to the camera. We can end this here. You walk away, spread the word about why humans make poor targets. Or, her smile turned predatory. We can do this the old-fashioned way. I warn you, though, humans enjoy a good hunt, especially when we're not the ones being hunted. Through their failing systems, Krikstal caught movement in their peripheral sensors. Human security personnel were quietly evacuating nearby sections of the station. Not in panic, but with practiced precision. They were clearing a hunting ground. Clocks ticking. Reynolds checked her antique wristwatch. Your encryption is good, but I'll have your exact location in, about 3 minutes. Better decide quickly whether professional pride is worth becoming an object lesson in why humans are now classified as contract null targets. In the ensuing silence, Krikstal made their choice. They would soon learn it was exactly the one she had anticipated. Mercenary guild archives weren't meant to be accessed from maintenance tunnels. Krikstal's crystalline form reflected the dim emergency lighting as they interfaced with a buried data node, their trembling claws making the connection difficult. Somewhere above, Dr. Reynolds was coordinating her hunt, methodically sealing off sections of the station. The archive data streamed through their neural network. Contract records spanning 2 decades of human expansion into galactic society. The earliest files painted a familiar picture. Humans were considered soft targets, their technological advancement unable to compensate for biological fragility. Then the success rates began to change. Analysis complete, Krikstal's system reported. Human target survival rate has increased from 40% to 99.9% over 15 years, correlating survivor accounts. The first pattern emerged from a Selenian shadow stalker's final report. Target knew our ambush location, not through technology. They noticed temperature variations in the corridor plating that our thermocloaks created. They're pattern hunters by nature. Another report from a Vespid assassination specialist. Human Mark walked into our trap deliberately. They wanted us to commit our resources. Now they're picking us apart, using our own tactics against us. They're learning, evolving their strategies mid-hunt. Krikstal's hearts synchronized in mounting dread as they accessed a restricted file marked Classification Update Hearing. The footage showed a scared Proximan testifying before the Guild Council. You're not understanding the fundamental problem. The Proximan's tentacles writhed in agitation. Other species evolved pure survival responses, fight or flight. Humans? They developed something worse. They learned to fight by fleeing, to flee by fighting. There's no pure response with them. A council member interrupted, yet their physical capabilities are completely irrelevant, the Proximan cut in. We analyzed their evolution. They survived by outlasting everything that hunted them, learning from each encounter. Now, they've turned it into an art form. They don't just survive assassination attempts, they use them as training exercises. More data cascaded through Krikstal's display. Success rates against human targets didn't just decline, they inverted. Failed contracts increasingly ended with the hunters becoming the hunted. The few survivors reported the same key observations. Asterisk humans don't stop. They don't need to outrun you. They'll follow until you make a mistake. Asterisk. Asterisk. They share hunting knowledge instantly across their networks. Every failed attempt makes their entire species more dangerous. Asterisk. Asterisk. They turn everything into a weapon. Not just tools. Information, psychology, even their own apparent weaknesses. Asterisk. A high-priority alert interrupted Krikstal's research. Above, station sensors detected Dr. Reynolds entering the maintenance sector. She was walking openly, making no attempt at stealth. I have to admire your dedication to research. Her voice came through Krikstal's compromised comm system. Most hunters try to run. You're trying to understand. That's very human of you. Krikstal frantically accessed more recent records. The data showed a terrifying evolution. Humans had begun deliberately attracting assassination attempts, using them to identify and eliminate threats to their expansion. Found what you're looking for? Reynolds asked. Her footsteps echoed through the maintenance tunnels. The contract on me wasn't about elimination. It was about demonstration. Your guild needed a reminder of why we're classified as contract null. The final file in Crixtel's search revealed the truth. Dr. Reynolds had survived 3 previous assassination attempts. Each time, she'd left the survivors alive but transformed, enhanced with cybernetics like Vexthor, turned into living mornings. Here's the part most hunters never grasp. Her voice was closer now. Humans don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to ensure nothing threatens us the same way twice. Right now, your entire strategy is being archived, analyzed, and distributed through human networks. The next hunter who tries these methods, they'll face countermeasures before they begin. Crixtel's sensors detected movement on multiple levels. The maintenance sector was being sealed, transformed into a labyrinth. Not to trap them, they realized with dawning horror, but to create an optimal hunting ground. So, Reynolds' voice echoed from multiple directions, ready to help write the next chapter in why humans are the galaxy's apex counter-predators. In the darkness, Crixtel finally understood. They weren't failing to eliminate a target. They were becoming part of humanity's evolutionary response to being hunted. Crixtel's exoskeleton scraped against the maintenance tunnel walls as they retreated deeper into Nexus Station's infrastructure. Their neural display projected research data streamed from emergency archives, a desperate attempt to understand their prey-turned-predator. Accessing Earth Biological Database, their system announced, "Focus, Human Evolutionary Advantages." The first images showed ancient humans pursuing large prey across endless savannas. No natural weapons, no remarkable speed, just that relentless pursuit until their targets collapsed from exhaustion. Fascinating reading, isn't it? Dr. Reynolds' voice echoed through the tunnels. Most species evolved to be fast or strong or well-armed. Humans, we became persistent. Crixtel's research expanded. Humans had developed sweat glands, allowing them to regulate temperature while moving. Their bipedal stance and long legs enabled efficient tracking over vast distances. But it was their neural adaptations that proved truly terrifying. Pattern recognition, Reynolds continued as if reading their research. That's what really sets us apart. We don't just see tracks or movement, we see stories. Every broken twig, every displaced pebble tells us where our prey is going, or in your case, where our hunter is hiding. A maintenance bot skittered past Crixtel's position. Its visual sensors had been modified, now mimicking human optical patterns. They realized with horror that Reynolds wasn't just hunting them. She was teaching the station's systems how to think like a human predator. "Your earlier scan was thorough," Reynolds commented. "The neurotoxin was perfectly engineered for human biology. But you made the same mistake every other species makes. You studied our bodies, not our minds." The research data continued flowing. Humans hadn't just survived as prey species. They'd turned their prey experiences into predatory advantages. Their tribal instincts evolved into complex social networks. Their fear responses developed into threat analysis systems more sophisticated than any artificial intelligence. Did you know humans can read micro-expressions across most sapient species? Reynolds' voice moved closer. We evolved to understand prey behavior, but that same ability lets us read predators. Right now, your crystalline structure is displaying stress patterns consistent with mounting panic. More historical data filtered through. Humans had spent millennia being hunted by faster, stronger predators. Instead of developing natural weapons, they learned to turn everything in their environment into tools, not just for defense, for systematic counterpredation. Crixtel accessed thermal sensors, then froze. The temperature patterns in nearby corridors formed a perfect herding pattern. Reynolds wasn't just pursuing them. She was orchestrating their movement through the station's infrastructure. "Here's what makes humans truly unique," Reynolds explained, her voice now coming from multiple speakers. "Most prey species develop singular survival strategies. Run faster, hide better, fight harder. Humans, we collected every survival strategy we encountered. Then we learned to switch between them instantly. The research showed human cognitive flexibility in combat scenarios. They could shift from stalking predators to fleeing prey to ambush hunters in moments, adapting their strategy based on their opponent's reactions. But our greatest evolutionary advantage: as Shadow moved at the tunnel's intersection, we learn, not just individually, but as a species. Every time something tried to hunt us, we studied it, adapted to it, eventually surpassed it. Crixtel's sensors detected movement behind them. The maintenance bots had sealed their escape route, their programming now exhibiting distinctly predatory patterns. That's why the Guild's success rates against humans dropped so dramatically. Reynolds stepped into view, her stance relaxed but alert. We don't just survive assassination attempts. We use them to evolve our defenses. Each failed hunt makes our entire species more dangerous. She held up a neural transmitter identical to the one Vexthor had used. Want to know the really interesting part? That evolutionary drive never stopped. When we reached the stars, we found new predators, new threats, and we adapted to each one. The maintenance bots moved in perfect coordination, mimicking ancient pack hunting behaviors. Reynolds smiled, and Crixtel realized she hadn't just prepared for this hunt. She was using it to develop new counter-predation techniques. So, she gestured to the neural transmitter, ready to help humanity evolve its defenses a little further. In that moment, Crixtel understood why humans were classified as contract null. They weren't just targets that could defend themselves. They were an entire species that had turned survival into an art form, and predation into an evolutionary catalyst. The explosion rocked level 42 of Nexus Station, transforming Crixtel's primary safe house into a floating debris field. Through their neural display, they watched their meticulously cached supplies drift into space. The breach shields activated seconds later, but the damage was done. Amateur mistake. Dr. Reynolds' voice came through their emergency comm channel. Storing your resources together creates a single point of failure. Prey animals learned that lesson millions of years ago. That's why they scatter their nests. Crixtel scrambled through the station's service corridors, their crystalline form reflecting emergency lighting in prismatic patterns. They'd lost 6 safe houses in the past hour, each destroyed with surgical precision. Their tactical systems frantically calculated the impossibility of Reynolds' hunt. Your confusion is understandable, Reynolds continued, her voice following them through the station's network. You're wondering how I found your catches so quickly. The answer is beautiful in its simplicity. I didn't find them. Other humans did. A holographic display flickered to life on the corridor wall, showing surveillance footage. A maintenance worker noting unusual power fluctuations, a waste management technician detecting abnormal heat signatures, a child pointing out pretty crystal reflections in a ventilation shaft. Humans evolved as communal hunters, Reynolds explained. We share information instinctively. Every human on this station is part of my sensor network, feeding me data about your movements and patterns. Crixtel's secondary heart stuttered as they realized the implications. They weren't facing a single hunter. The entire human population of Nexus Station had been tracking them, each observation building a comprehensive map of their operations. Watch this, Reynolds said, almost playfully. I'm going to demonstrate another human hunting technique, psychological pressure. Their neural display erupted with alerts. Every contact in their network was simultaneously receiving proof of their failed assassination attempt. Bank accounts were being traced. Safe houses on 12 different worlds were being exposed. A lifetime of carefully constructed anonymity, unraveled in seconds. We learned this from wolves, actually, Reynolds continued. Isolate the prey, cut off their retreat options, then let them exhaust themselves trying to find a way out. A maintenance bot rounded the corner ahead, its usual service protocols replaced with predatory movement patterns. Crixtel dodged into a side passage, only to find 2 more bots waiting. Each machine moved with unnervingly organic precision. Notice how they're coordinating? Reynolds asked. Humans didn't just study prey animals. We studied predators too, learned their techniques, combined them with our technology. Krikstal activated their chameleon circuits, their exoskeleton shifting to match the corridor's metallic walls. A moment later, every light in the section changed color, rendering their camouflage useless. Active adaptation, Reynolds noted. Another human specialty. We don't just use our existing tools, we modify our environment to create new advantages mid-hunt. The station's internal sensors were evolving, learning to track crystalline thermal signatures. Environmental systems began creating subtle air pressure gradients, all herding Krikstal toward a central location. The entire station was becoming an extension of human hunting instincts. Here's what fascinates me about your species, Reynolds said, her voice now coming from speakers ahead and behind. You're excellent hunters, but you never learn to think like prey. Humans, we do both. We know how predators think because we spent millennia being hunted by them. Krikstal burst into a maintenance hub, only to find their escape routes systematically sealed. Not randomly. Each closure forced them to choose between progressively worse options. Decision fatigue, Reynolds explained. Prey animals under stress make increasingly poor choices. That's why human hunters learn to be patient. We don't need to outrun you. We just need to keep you moving until you make a mistake. The maintenance bots had formed a loose circle, their movements mirroring ancient human hunting formations. In their neural display, Krikstal watched their remaining options disappear one by one. Each backup plan countered before they could execute it. Ready to understand why humans are classified as contract null, Reynolds stepped into view at the hub's main entrance. She wasn't even wearing armor, just her diplomatic suit and that same confident smile. Your next choice determines whether you become a cautionary tale or an educational opportunity. In the artificial gravity of the station, Krikstal felt an entirely new sensation. The crushing weight of being prey. 72 hours. Dr. Reynolds' voice echoed through the maintenance hub. Survive that long, and I'll not only spare you but help expose who really wants me dead. Consider it a practical demonstration of why humans are the galaxy's apex counter-predators. Krikstal's neural systems calculated the odds of survival. The numbers weren't encouraging. Their exoskeleton bore stress fractures from repeated emergency maneuvers, and their primary energy reserves had dropped to critical levels. Of course, Reynolds continued, this isn't just about survival. It's an education. Lesson 1. Humans love creating controlled experiments. The station's environmental systems activated in sequence. Entire sections began cycling through different atmospheric conditions, gravitational fields, and temperature ranges. The maintenance hub transformed into a labyrinth of shifting hazards. Your species hunts through perfect execution, Reynolds explained. Humans, we prefer perfect adaptation. Watch how we transform environments to suit our needs. Krikstal's tactical display tracked the changes. Each sector became a unique challenge. Zero-gravity zones requiring precise movement, high-pressure areas testing structural integrity, thermal variations that played havoc with their crystalline form's natural camouflage. Notice the pattern. Reynolds asked as Krikstal navigated through a particularly treacherous section. Every obstacle is survivable, but each one forces you to adapt. Just like our early prey, you'll either evolve or fail. The maintenance bots had evolved too. Their initially simple hunting patterns now displayed complex pack behaviors. Some acted as scouts, others as herders, all coordinating with unsettling efficiency. Lesson 2. Reynolds' voice followed their desperate progress. Humans don't just learn from success. We learn even more from failure. Every time you evade a trap, we improve the next one. Hours blurred together. Krikstal found themselves developing new survival strategies, their hunters' instincts adapting to prey behaviors. They scattered resources instead of hoarding them. They learned to read environmental changes as predictions of human movement patterns. You're learning, Reynolds noted with approval. See how your crystalline structure is adapting its refraction patterns. That's genuine evolution under pressure. Fascinating to witness. 48 hours in, Krixtal understood why humans were so feared. It wasn't their technology or their physical capabilities. It was their ability to turn every situation into a learning experience, not just for themselves, but for their entire species. Final lesson, Reynolds announced as Krixtal entered the last phase of their survival challenge. Humans don't just hunt with our bodies or our tools. We hunt with time itself. The station's systems began displaying a new pattern. Each sector they'd survived had been analyzed, its data incorporated into increasingly sophisticated hunting algorithms. The maintenance bots now moved with near-perfect prediction of their evasion tactics. "Wonder why I offered 72 hours?" Reynolds asked. "That's how long it takes to fully map a prey species' survival patterns. By the end, we don't just know how you think, we know how you'll evolve." Krixtal's neural display flashed with recognition. The hunting patterns weren't just efficient, they were preventive. The humans weren't just learning to counter their current tactics, they were developing countermeasures for strategies Krixtal hadn't even thought of yet. "Time's almost up," Reynolds said as they approached the final hours. "Ready to understand why every failed assassination attempt makes humanity stronger. Your adaptive strategies have been fascinating. We'll incorporate them into our defense protocols." The realization hit harder than any physical blow. This wasn't just a hunt or even a lesson. It was a deliberate evolution of human counter-predation techniques, with Krixtal as the unwitting catalyst. "Remember," Reynolds' voice carried a note of professional satisfaction, "surviving isn't the real victory here. The victory is in how much we've learned, how much you've helped us improve our defenses." As the final minutes ticked down, Krixtal faced a truth more daunting than any prey's desperate flight. They had never been the hunter. They had been a test subject in humanity's ongoing evolution as the galaxy's most adaptable predators. "Time's up," Reynolds announced. "Ready to see who really hired you? Don't worry, dealing with them will be another excellent learning opportunity." The Mercenary Guild's emergency council chamber hummed with tension. Representatives from 17 species watched the holographic evidence with mounting horror as Dr. Amanda Reynolds presented her findings. "The contract originated from within the Centaurian Mining Consortium," she explained, standing beside the battered but alive form of Krixtal. "Specifically from Board Director Vexnar, who hoped to disrupt our negotiations through my elimination." Krixtal's crystalline form still bore evidence of their 72-hour ordeal. Their exoskeleton had developed new patterns, stress-induced evolutionary adaptations that the human scientists were studying with profound interest. "But that's not why we're here," Reynolds continued. "We're here to formalize what the hunting community already knows. Humans are no longer viable targets for assassination, not because we're unkillable, but because we've turned survival into an evolutionary advantage." The display shifted to show footage from Krixtal's hunt. The maintenance bots' hunting patterns, the environmental manipulation, the systematic dismantling of escape routes, all demonstrated with clinical precision. "Every failed attempt makes us stronger," Reynolds explained. "We don't just survive. We analyze, adapt, and distribute that knowledge across our entire species. Each hunter becomes a teacher, helping us develop new defenses." The council's Proximan chair leaned forward. "The survival rates against human targets are now effectively zero," Reynolds interrupted. "But more importantly, the survival rates of the hunters themselves have dropped to critical levels. Not because we kill them, but because we transform them." She gestured to Krixtal. "Show them." Krixtal interfaced with the chamber systems. Their neural display projected the complete data from their ordeal. The psychological pressure, the environmental challenges, the systematic evolution of human hunting techniques. "Remarkable," the Drachnid representative muttered. "They turned a single hunt into a comprehensive defense upgrade for their entire species. This is why we're proposing the contract null classification," Reynolds continued. "Not as a threat, but as a professional courtesy. Taking contracts on humans doesn't just risk failure. It risks becoming part of our evolutionary response to being hunted." The chamber erupted in overlapping discussions, The implications were staggering. Humans hadn't just become difficult targets, they'd turned assassination attempts into opportunities for species-wide advancement. Consider the pattern, Reynolds pressed. Each failed attempt provides new data. We learn the hunter's techniques, develop countermeasures, and distribute that knowledge. The next hunter faces an entirely different challenge, one specifically evolved to counter their approach. The council reviewed the statistics, failed contracts, disappeared hunters, the systematic improvement of human counter-predation techniques. Each attempt had made humanity more formidable, not just individually, but as a species. The classification is approved, the chair announced. Effective immediately, human targets are designated contract null. The penalty for accepting such contracts will be immediate guild expulsion. As the council dispersed, Reynolds approached Crickstall. Your survival strategies were exemplary, she said. Our defense algorithms have already incorporated several of your techniques. Crickstall's mandibles clicked in resignation. The contract on you. It was never about assassination, was it? Let's say we had multiple objectives. Reynolds smiled. Exposing corporate corruption, demonstrating why humans are poor targets, and she gestured to their evolved crystalline patterns. Gathering valuable data on adaptation under pressure. The chamber's final displays showed the updated guild protocols. Humans were now classified alongside cosmic horrors and sentient singularities, entities whose targeting guaranteed catastrophic consequences for the hunter. One last thing, Reynolds added. That evolutionary drive you experienced, it never stops. Each generation of humans builds on the survival strategies of the last. We're not just learning to survive assassination attempts. We're evolving beyond the very concept of being prey. As they left the chamber, Crickstall understood the true horror of hunting humans. It wasn't that they couldn't be killed. It was that every attempt to kill them made them more formidable, not through technology or training, but through the very essence of their being. The galaxy's deadliest hunters had finally encountered a species that turned predation itself into a catalyst for evolution. Humanity hadn't just survived. They had transformed the very nature of survival. The age of hunting humans was over. The age of humans as hunters had begun.